The blood on Dominic Corleone's knuckles was still wet when he saw her. She stood in the doorway of his father's study, frozen like a deer caught in headlights, her dark eyes wide as they took in the scene, the shattered whiskey glass, the overturned chair, the crimson droplets trailing across the Persian rug. Her fingers clutched a silver tray so tightly her knuckles had gone white, and for 3 heartbeats neither of them moved. Then she did something that changed everything. She didn't scream, didn't run. Instead, Sophia Miyagi set down the tray with hands that barely trembled, pulled a crisp white handkerchief from her apron pocket, and walked straight toward him. "Your hand," she said quietly, her accent soft, somewhere between Italian and something else he couldn't place. "You'll get an infection." Dominic stared at this slip of a girl who'd been working in the Corleone estate for exactly 3 weeks, this woman who should be terrified of him, of what she'd just witnessed, of what his family was capable of. But there was no fear in those eyes, only something that looked dangerously close to concern. Behind him, the man who'd tried to betray his father lay unconscious, his betrayal literally beaten out of him. And here she was, worried about Dominic's split knuckles. "You should leave," he told her, his voice rough. "Forget what you saw here." Sophia met his gaze steadily. "I came to bring your father his evening coffee. That's all I saw." She reached for his hand. "Now, let me see." "Don't." The word came out sharper than he intended, and he pulled back. "Don't touch me." Something flickered across her face, hurt, maybe, or defiance, but she simply nodded and stepped back. "As you wish, Signore Corleone." She turned to leave, and that's when his younger brother Ethan appeared in the doorway, blocking her path. Ethan McLean had their mother's light eyes and reckless smile, and right now both were fixed on Sophia with an intensity that made Dominic's jaw clench. "Well, well," Ethan drawled, leaning against the doorframe. "The new maid. Sophia, isn't it?" "Excuse me, signore," she murmured, trying to slip past him. Ethan didn't move. Instead, he reached out and caught a strand of her dark hair that had escaped her neat bun. "You know, I've been meaning to introduce myself properly." Dominic crossed the room in 3 strides and gripped his brother's wrist hard enough to make Ethan wince. When he spoke, his voice was deadly quiet. "Touch her, and you're dead." The words hung in the air like a threat and a promise, and Dominic saw the exact moment Sophia understood what was happening. Her eyes widened, darting between the 2 brothers, and something in that look, confusion mixed with awakening awareness, sent a jolt through Dominic's chest that had nothing to do with the violence still pumping through his veins. Ethan yanked his hand free, his smile gone cold. "That's a dangerous line to draw, brother, especially over the help." "Then don't cross it." For a moment, Dominic thought Ethan might actually throw a punch. His brother's jaw was tight, his shoulders squared in challenge. But then Ethan's gaze slid to Sophia, and that reckless smile returned. "This just got interesting," Ethan said softly, and walked away whistling. Dominic and Sophia stood alone in the study, the unconscious man between them forgotten, the coffee growing cold on its tray. She was looking at him now with an expression he couldn't read, and for reasons he didn't understand and couldn't afford to examine, he needed to know what she was thinking. "You're not afraid," he said. It wasn't a question. Sophia's lips curved into the smallest, saddest smile he'd ever seen. "I've seen worse than blood and broken furniture, Signore Corleone. Much worse." There was a story there, buried in those words, in the shadows behind her eyes. And God help him, Dominic wanted to know it. Wanted to know everything about this woman who'd just witnessed him at his most violent and hadn't flinched. "Go," he told her, though everything in him wanted her to stay. And Sophia? Whatever you think just happened here, whatever my brother said, forget it. She picked up her tray and walked to the door, but she paused there, looking back at him with those dark, unfathomable eyes. Some things, she said quietly, are impossible to forget. Then she was gone, and Dominic was left standing in his father's study, the blood on his hands drying, his brother's challenge echoing in his ears, and the scent of jasmine from her perfume still hanging in the air like a warning he should have heeded. Because in that moment, with his heart still pounding and his body still coiled tight from the confrontation, Dominic Corleone realized 3 terrible truths. He'd just claimed a woman he had no right to want. His brother had just accepted a challenge that could tear their family apart. And Sophia Miyagi, quiet, composed, heartbreakingly beautiful Sophia, was about to become the most dangerous thing in their world. Hey there, beautiful souls. I hope you're doing amazing today. Seriously, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I love connecting with you all. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because, trust me, this story is about to take you on a ride you won't want to miss. Things are about to get intense. Now, let me ask you something. Have you ever been warned away from something, or someone, that you knew you should avoid, but couldn't? That feeling when danger and desire collide? Keep that thought close, because Dominic, Ethan, and Sophia are about to discover that some forbidden lines, once crossed, can never be uncrossed. Stick with me. This is just the beginning. Sophia had learned long ago that survival meant making herself invisible. In the Corleone estate, invisibility should have been easy. Just another maid in black and white, just another pair of hands polishing silver and changing sheets. But 3 weeks in, and she'd already failed spectacularly. She should have known better than to walk into that study. Should have knocked, should have waited, should have done anything except stand there holding that damned coffee tray while Dominic Corleone's eyes burned into hers like a brand. Now, lying in her small room in the servants' quarters, she stared at the ceiling and replayed those 5 words that had changed everything. Touch her, and you're dead. She'd come to Italy running from ghosts, from Tokyo, from her father's debts, from men who'd made it clear that her body could pay what her family owed. The Corleone household had seemed safe, anonymous, a place to disappear. Instead, she'd walked straight into a different kind of danger. The knock on her door came at midnight. Sophia's heart slammed against her ribs as she opened it to find Ethan McLean leaning against the frame, still wearing his tailored suit, a bottle of wine dangling from his fingers. "Couldn't sleep either?" His smile was all charm and trouble. "Thought you might want company." "Signore McLean, this is inappropriate." "Ethan," he corrected, stepping closer. "And inappropriate is my specialty." His eyes traveled over her nightgown, lingering just long enough to make her skin prickle. "You know what I think, Sophia? I think my brother made a mistake tonight. Drew a line he can't defend." "I don't know what you mean." "Don't you?" Ethan's voice dropped, intimate and dangerous. "Dominic wants you. I could see it in his eyes, that barely controlled need. But here's the thing about my brother. He's all duty and honor. He'll deny himself until it kills him." Sophia's hand tightened on the doorframe. "You should go." "Me, though?" Ethan continued as if she hadn't spoken. "I take what I want, and I've decided I want to know what's got the great Dominic Corleone so twisted up inside." Before Sophia could respond, a voice cut through the darkness like a blade. "Step away from her door. Now." Dominic emerged from the shadows of the hallway, still dressed despite the late hour. His eyes were cold fire as they fixed on his brother. Ethan laughed, but it sounded forced. "Just having a conversation, Dom. At midnight, outside her bedroom." Dominic moved closer, his body coiled with barely restrained violence. "I warned you." "Yeah, you did." Ethan's smile turned sharp. "But you never explained why. What is she to you? Just the help, right? So why do you care?" The silence stretched like a wire pulled too tight. Sophia watched Dominic's jaw work, watched the war playing out behind his eyes. Duty versus desire, control versus chaos. "She's under this family's protection," Dominic finally said. "That makes her untouchable." "To everyone?" Ethan challenged. "Or just to me?" Dominic's answer was to grab his brother by the collar and slam him against the wall. "Leave her alone." Then he released Ethan and turned to Sophia, and the look in his eyes, raw, hungry, desperate, stole her breath. "Lock your door," he said roughly. "Keep it locked." He walked away, leaving Sophia standing between two brothers who wanted her for very different reasons, and neither of which she could afford. But as she closed her door and turned the lock, one thought burned through her mind. She was already caught. The summons came at dawn. Sophia was called to the main dining room where the entire Corleone family sat for breakfast, a command performance she'd never been required to attend. Her stomach knotted as she entered, finding Dominic and Ethan seated on opposite sides of the long table, their father Lorenzo at the head. Lorenzo Corleone was a mountain of a man, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, radiating the kind of power that came from decades of ruling an empire built on blood and loyalty. "Sophia Miyagi," he said, his voice like gravel. "Sit." She obeyed. Sliding into the chair a servant pulled out for her, directly across from Dominic, who wouldn't meet her eyes. "My sons tell me there's been some tension." Lorenzo's gaze moved between his boys. "Over you." Sophia's heart stopped. "Signore, I don't lie to me, girl." Lorenzo's tone wasn't unkind, just absolute. "I've built my life on reading people, and what I'm reading right now is that both my sons want something they can't have." Ethan leaned back in his chair, cocky despite the dangerous atmosphere. "With respect, Father, she's just—" "Careful," Dominic interrupted, his voice deadly quiet. Lorenzo's eyes gleamed with interest. "Here's what's going to happen. Sophia, you're no longer a maid in this house." Relief flooded through her, until his next words. "You're going to be Dominic's personal assistant. You'll accompany him everywhere. Business meetings, family dinners, everything." Lorenzo smiled coldly. "If my heir is this protective of you, then you're valuable, and I protect what's valuable." "Father, that's not necessary," Dominic started. It wasn't a suggestion. Lorenzo turned to Ethan. "And you'll keep your distance. That's an order." Ethan's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Sophia felt the trap closing around her. "Signore Corleone, I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm not qualified. You survived whatever brought you here from Tokyo covered in bruises," Lorenzo said bluntly, and Sophia flinched. "Don't think I don't vet everyone who works in my home. Your father owed money to the Yamamoto Syndicate. They came to collect. You ran." The room spun. "How did he know?" "They're still looking for you," Lorenzo continued. "But they won't find you here. Not if you're under my protection. Not if you belong to us." "I don't belong to anyone," Sophia whispered. Dominic's head snapped up, and their eyes finally met. She saw the apology there, the regret, but also something fiercer. Possession. "You do now," Lorenzo said. "Welcome to the family, Sophia." As breakfast ended and the brothers filed out, Ethan passed her chair and leaned down, his breath hot against her ear. "This isn't over. My father can make all the rules he wants, but you and I both know the truth." "What truth?" she breathed. "You're not afraid of Dominic, but me?" His smile was wicked. "I terrify you, and you love it." Then he was gone, leaving Sophia alone with the realization that she'd just been handed to Dominic Corleone like a possession, and both brothers were going to fight for her anyway. The war had begun. The first week as Dominic's assistant was torture. Sophia accompanied him everywhere, to meetings with stone-faced men who reeked of danger, to dinners where business was negotiated in Italian she barely understood, to his private office where he worked until midnight while she pretended to review files she couldn't concentrate on, because Dominic Corleone was everywhere. His cologne in the car, his presence across the desk, his voice in her ear when he leaned close to explain something, his hand on her lower back, guiding her through doorways. He never crossed the line. But God, he walked right up to it. "You're distracted," he said one evening, catching her staring at him instead of the contract in her hands. "I'm tired," she lied. Dominic set down his pen, his dark eyes searching hers. "Sophia, I need you to understand something. What my father did, making you my assistant, I didn't ask for that. But you're not fighting it either." "No." The admission hung between them, heavy with meaning. "I'm not." "Why?" The question escaped before she could stop it. He stood, moving around the desk until he was close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "Because the alternative is watching my brother circle you like prey. Because every instinct I have screams to keep you close. Because—" He stopped, jaw clenching. "Because what?" "Because I haven't been able to think straight since the moment you walked into that study." Sophia's breath caught. This was dangerous territory, the kind that could destroy them both. But she couldn't look away from the raw honesty in his eyes. The office door burst open. Ethan strode in, fury radiating from every line of his body. "We have a problem." Dominic stepped back from Sophia immediately, his expression shuddering. "What kind of problem?" "The Yamamoto Syndicate." Ethan's eyes flicked to Sophia. "They know she's here." Ice flooded Sophia's veins. "That's impossible. How?" "Someone talked." Ethan's smile was bitter. "And they've sent a message. They want their property back, or they'll come take it." "She's not property," Dominic growled. "Tell them that." Ethan pulled out his phone, showing them a photo that made Sophia's stomach revolt. It was her small bedroom in the servants' quarters, photographed from inside. On her pillow lay a single red rose and a note in Japanese. "We're closer than you think." "They were in the house," Sophia whispered. "They were in my room." Dominic's hand found hers, squeezing tight. "You're moving into the family wing. Tonight." "That's your solution?" Ethan challenged. "Keep her closer? That's exactly what they want, to see how far you'll go for her." "Then they're about to find out." Ethan laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're willing to start a war over a woman you barely know? A war that could destroy everything Father built?" Dominic turned to his brother, and Sophia saw something shift in his expression, a decision being made that couldn't be unmade. "If they touch her," Dominic said quietly, "there won't be a war. There'll be a massacre." Sophia realized then that she wasn't just caught between two brothers anymore. She was the match that could burn their entire world down. Sophia's new room in the family wing was directly between Dominic's and Ethan's, a detail that felt less like protection and more like a powder keg waiting to explode. At 2 a.m., she found out why. The gunshots shattered the silence. Sophia bolted upright as her door crashed open. Dominic filled the frame, gun in hand, his eyes wild. "Stay down!" He was beside her in seconds, pulling her from the bed and onto the floor just as her window exploded in a shower of glass. More gunshots peppered the walls, and Sophia's scream died in her throat as Dominic covered her body with his. "Don't move," he breathed against her ear. The shooting stopped as suddenly as it started. In the ringing silence, Ethan appeared in the doorway, also armed. "They're gone. 4 shooters in a black van. Father's men are pursuing." Dominic lifted himself off Sophia, his hands immediately checking her for injuries. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, unable to speak. "This was a message," Ethan said, his usual cocky demeanor replaced by cold fury. "They're not trying to take her. They're trying to make us give her up." "Never!" Dominic's voice was steel. Lorenzo's voice boomed from the hallway. "My office! All of you! Now!" 5 minutes later, Sophia sat trembling in Lorenzo's study while the Corleone men stood in various states of barely controlled rage. But it was Lorenzo's next words that changed everything. "The Yamamotos didn't send those shooters." Sophia's head snapped up. "What?" Lorenzo dropped a folder on the desk. "My men caught one of them. He talked before he died. They were hired by the Castellanos, our rivals. They're using Sophia as an excuse to destabilize us, to make us look weak." "Then we end them," Dominic said flatly. "No." Lorenzo's gaze settled on Sophia. "We end this another way. Sophia, how much does your father owe the Yamamotos?" €2 million, she whispered. "Consider it paid. As of tomorrow, your debt is erased." Lorenzo's smile was predatory. "In exchange, you'll do exactly what my son seems incapable of admitting he wants." Sophia's heart hammered. "I don't understand." "You'll marry Dominic." The room exploded. "Father, that's insane." Dominic started. "Is it?" Lorenzo cut him off. "You've already claimed her. Everyone knows it. Make it official, make it legal, and suddenly she's not a weakness. She's family. Untouchable." "You can't force her." Ethan's voice was raw. "I'm not forcing anyone." Lorenzo looked at Sophia. "I'm offering protection, a real life. Freedom from your past. All you have to do is marry a man who clearly wants you." Sophia's eyes found Dominic's. She saw the conflict there, the desire warring with honor, the need battling duty. But underneath it all, she saw the truth he'd been hiding. He did want her. Desperately. "There's something you should know," Sophia heard herself say, "before you decide to tie yourself to me." 3 pairs of eyes fixed on her. "I'm not just running from debt." Her voice shook. "I witnessed a murder. The Yamamoto boss himself, and I'm the only person alive who can identify him." The silence was deafening. Then Dominic smiled. Dangerous, deadly, and somehow tender. "Then I guess we're both killers, aren't we? We'll fit right together." The engagement was announced within 24 hours. Sophia wore a ring she hadn't chosen, stood beside a man she barely knew, and smiled for photos that would be sent to every crime family in Europe. The message was clear. Sophia Miyagi belonged to the Corleones now, but belonging came with a price. "You look miserable," Ethan said, finding her alone on the terrace after the announcement party. The guests had finally left, and Sophia had escaped to breathe. "I'm fine." "You're a terrible liar." He moved closer, and Sophia caught the scent of whiskey on his breath. "He's going to break your heart, you know. Dominic doesn't know how to love, only how to possess." "And you do?" Ethan's laugh was bitter. "I would have loved you recklessly, burned the whole world down for you, but you chose the safe option." "I didn't choose anything." Sophia said quietly. I was chosen. Then unchoose. His hand caught her chin, tilting her face up. Run away with me, tonight. We'll disappear where neither family can find us. For one insane moment, Sophia considered it. Considered a life without duty, without danger, without the weight of Dominic's dark eyes following her everywhere. Then Dominic's voice cut through the night. Get your hands off my fiancée. Ethan didn't let go. Or what? You'll kill your own brother? The punch came so fast, Sophia barely saw it. Ethan hit the ground, blood streaming from his nose, and Dominic stood over him with murder in his eyes. Try me again, Dominic said softly. Please. Lorenzo's voice cracked like a whip. Enough. The patriarch emerged from the shadows, flanked by his guards. His face was stone. Ethan, you're being sent to our operations in New York, effective immediately. Father, you've proven you can't control yourself, so I'm removing the temptation. Lorenzo's gaze shifted to Dominic and Sophia. The wedding happens in 3 days, before anything else can go wrong. As Lorenzo and his men dragged Ethan away, Sophia stood frozen. 3 days. She had 3 days before she became Dominic Corleone's wife in name, in law, in every way that mattered. Dominic reached for her, but she stepped back. Don't, she whispered. Don't touch me right now. Sophia, your brother just offered me freedom, and you answered with violence. Your father just sold me like cattle, and you said nothing. Her voice broke. I'm terrified, Dominic. Not of the Yamamotos or the Castellanos, of you, of what this life means, of waking up one day and realizing I've become someone I don't recognize. She saw him flinch as if she'd struck him. If you want out, I'll find another way to protect you. There is no other way. We both know that. Sophia wrapped her arms around herself. In 3 days, I'll marry you. I'll smile for the cameras and play the dutiful wife, but don't expect me to love you for it. The lie tasted bitter on her tongue because the truth was so much worse. She was already falling for him, and that scared her most of all. The night before the wedding, Sophia couldn't sleep. She wandered the estate halls at midnight, a ghost in silk pajamas, until she found herself outside Dominic's study. Light spilled from under the door. Before she could second-guess herself, she knocked. Come in. Dominic sat behind his desk, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, looking as exhausted as she felt. When he saw her, something shifted in his expression. Surprise, then hunger, then careful control. Couldn't sleep either, he asked. I keep thinking about tomorrow, about what it means. Sophia closed the door behind her. We should talk, really talk, not as captor and captive, but as two people about to bind their lives together. Dominic stood, moving to the leather couch by the fireplace. Then sit. Ask me anything. Sophia settled beside him, careful to maintain distance. Why did you really claim me that first night? The truth. He was quiet for a long moment. My mother, he finally said. She was like you. Beautiful, fierce, trapped in a world she didn't choose. My father loved her, but he loved his empire more. She died when I was 15, drove her car off a cliff on purpose. Sophia's breath caught. Dominic, when I saw you in that doorway, unafraid, I saw her. The strength she had before this life crushed it out of her. His eyes met hers. I claimed you because I couldn't bear to watch my brother destroy that strength, but I'm terrified I'll destroy it myself. The vulnerability in his voice broke something open in Sophia's chest. She reached for his hand, lacing their fingers together. Then don't. Don't treat me like your mother. Treat me like your equal. You are my equal, he said fiercely. You're stronger than all of us. Then prove it. Sophia shifted closer. Tell me the plan. How do we actually end this? The Yamamotos, the Castellanos, all of it. Dominic's eyes lit with something dangerous and hopeful. You want in? I want to stop running. I want to fight. She squeezed his hand. Your father said I witnessed the Yamamoto boss commit murder. That makes me leverage, so let's use it. For the first time since they'd met, Dominic smiled, really smiled. The FBI has been trying to build a case against him for years. If you testify, I become a target. Not if we strike first. We give the FBI what they need, let them take him down, and in the chaos, we eliminate the Castellanos. Dominic pulled her closer. It's dangerous, bloody. Everything could go wrong. But if it goes right, we're free. Both of us. Sophia looked at their joined hands, then at the man who'd claimed her, protected her, and was now offering to fight beside her. Tomorrow she would marry him. But tonight she chose him. Then let's burn it all down, she whispered. Dominic cupped her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. After tomorrow, you're mine. But Sophia, I'm yours too. Completely. When he kissed her, it felt like a promise and a declaration of war. The wedding was a trap, and everyone knew it. Sophia walked down the aisle in white lace, her hand steady on Lorenzo's arm, while armed guards lined every wall. The chapel was filled with allies and enemies alike, all waiting to see if the ceremony would end in vows or violence. Dominic stood at the altar in a black suit, his eyes never leaving hers. In his pocket was the evidence, recordings, photographs, testimonies that Sophia had helped compile. Everything needed to destroy the Yamamoto boss. The FBI was waiting outside. Dearly beloved, the priest began. The explosion shook the building. Screams erupted as the chapel's side door blew inward. Yamamoto soldiers poured through, guns blazing. But Dominic had anticipated this. His men returned fire immediately, and the wedding became a battlefield. Dominic pulled Sophia behind the altar as bullets shredded the pews. "Stay down! Not a chance!" Sophia grabbed the gun he'd insisted she carry under her dress. "We end this now!" Through the chaos, she saw him, Kenji Yamamoto himself, the man whose cold-blooded murder she'd witnessed in Tokyo. He stood in the doorway, flanked by guards, his eyes locked on her with deadly intent. "There you are, little witness," he called over the gunfire. "I've been looking everywhere for you." Dominic raised his weapon, but Yamamoto's men had him pinned. Sophia made her choice. She stepped out from behind the altar. "You want me?" she shouted. "Come get me!" "Sophia, no!" Dominic's roar was drowned by gunfire. Yamamoto smiled and advanced, but Sophia wasn't running anymore. She stood her ground, and when he was close enough, she raised her gun with steady hands. "This is for every girl you thought you owned," she said, and fired. The shot hit his shoulder, spinning him around. As he fell, FBI agents burst through every entrance, flooding the chapel with tactical gear, and shouted commands. "FBI, drop your weapons!" In the confusion, the Castellano men tried to escape, but ran straight into Ethan McLean and reinforcements blocking the exits. Ethan's grin was feral as he cut them down. "Nobody ruins my brother's wedding," Ethan growled. Within minutes, it was over. Yamamoto was in custody, his empire crumbling. The Castellanos were dead or captured, and Sophia stood in her ruined wedding dress, gun still smoking, as Dominic fought his way to her through the crowd. "You beautiful, crazy, impossible woman," he breathed, pulling her into his arms. "You could have been killed." "But I wasn't." Sophia grabbed his face, kissing him hard. "We won, Dominic. We're free." Around them, FBI agents secured the scene. Lorenzo surveyed the carnage with grim satisfaction, and Ethan, bleeding from a graze wound but alive, raised a champagne bottle he'd somehow salvaged. "To the bride and groom," he called, his smile genuine despite everything. "May they have a long, peaceful, boring life." Dominic laughed against Sophia's lips. "Boring sounds perfect right now." The priest, emerging shakily from behind the altar, cleared his throat. "Should we finish the ceremony?" 3 months later, Sophia stood on the balcony of their new home in Sicily, far from the blood-soaked chapel, far from the darkness of the past. The villa overlooked the sea, and morning sun painted everything gold. She heard footsteps behind her and smiled before Dominic's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. "You're up early, Mrs. Corleone," he murmured against her neck. "Couldn't sleep. Too happy." She turned in his arms, studying the face she'd grown to love, no longer the cold air, but the man beneath. "Who would have thought that you'd fall for me?" His smile was teasing. "I always knew. Arrogant." But she kissed him anyway, slow and sweet. Their honeymoon, the real one without gunfire, had been 3 weeks of learning each other, not as captor and captive, not as Mafia heir and protected witness, but as Dominic and Sophia, 2 people choosing each other every single day. The doorbell rang, interrupting them. "I'll get it," Dominic said, but Sophia followed him down. Ethan stood on the doorstep, flowers in hand, looking sheepish. "Peace offering?" The brothers stared at each other for a long moment. Then Dominic pulled Ethan into a fierce hug. "You saved our lives at the wedding," Dominic said roughly. "We're even, brother." "Good, because I'm actually here about someone else." Ethan's grin turned genuine. "Met a girl in New York, a prosecutor, actually. She hates everything about our world and me specifically. I'm in love." Sophia laughed, the sound bright and free. "Then you'd better bring her to visit." As Ethan left, promising to return for dinner, Sophia and Dominic walked back to their balcony. The testimony she'd given had been enough. Yamamoto was facing life in prison, his organization dismantled. The Castellanos were finished. And Lorenzo had surprised everyone by announcing his semi-retirement, leaving Dominic to rebuild the family business into something legitimate. "Any regrets?" Dominic asked, pulling her close. Sophia thought about the scared girl who'd arrived at the Corleone estate with nothing but bruises and fear. Thought about the woman she'd become, stronger, fiercer, free. "Not a single one," she said. "You? Only that I didn't claim you sooner." He kissed her forehead. "I love you, Sophia. Not because my father arranged it, not because circumstance forced it, but because you're the bravest person I've ever met." "I love you too," she whispered. "My dangerous, protective, surprisingly sweet husband." They stood together as the sun climbed higher, 2 people who'd found each other in the darkest circumstances and chosen light. The past couldn't touch them anymore. The future was theirs to write. And somewhere in the distance, church bells rang, not for a wedding interrupted by violence, but for all the peaceful mornings yet to come.